Hi everyone, and welcome to the final episode of this Let's Play series. We've met our design goals, and the base is running pretty well now. And I'm ready to move on to the next challenge. So to close things out, I'm just going to do a base tour, kind of an overview of how things are set up. And if there are any questions or comments, please let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions or respond to your comments. I'll also make a copy of my save game available for anyone who wants to tour the base on their own, take blueprints or just check things out in general. So first of all, the goals were first to make 1,000 science per minute. And actually I measure this by how much science I'm consuming. So if we look at the 1 hour consumption of science packs, you'll see that it's actually less than 1,000 because I had a couple of interruptions that I had to fix. But if you look at the last 10 minutes, we're hitting 1,000. If you look at the last 10 hours, you can see that we've been at 1,000 for most of that time with occasional glitches that I've had to fix. These glitches usually are things like a traffic jam. In one case, it had stopped for a while because I ran out of red science packs because I only had one train of iron plates going to make red science, and it was just like it wasn't quite enough to keep it running, so it stopped for a little while. So I added another train that fixed that. So little things like that occasionally pop up, but as you can see, for the most part, we're cruising along at 1,000 per minute science packs. Now I look at consumption rather than production just because the production varies by quite a lot. So for example, right now you can see that we've been making 1,100 per minute of the purple science packs, 800 per minute of the blues. The production kind of goes up and down depending on inventories at the science area and so forth. So that is somewhat variable. That's why I look at consumption, because that's how many science packs we're using, and this kind of smooths out all the little dips and valleys in the production rates. So the secondary goal was to launch as many or more rockets as subscribers. So when we started the series, I think I had something like 350 subscribers, and I got pretty lucky because I happened to be working from home the day that the 0.16 update was released, and I was looking at Reddit, as I often do when I'm working or supposed to be working. And I saw that it had just been released, and I figured, this will be a great opportunity for me to get my name out there and hopefully get some more hits by being one of the first ones to release a video with the new version. So as soon as I saw it, like probably about an hour after it was released, I saw the notification, and right away I went and started a new game and got a video recorded and uploaded within a couple hours. So I got lucky in that I was one of the first people to start a new Let's Play series with the new version, and that allowed me to get more viewers than I would have otherwise. So over the course of this series, those of you who are subscribing and watching my videos has increased by quite a lot, and I really appreciate that. Thanks to all of you for your support and your comments. It's been great. So, long story short, the current count is a little over 1,100, so that was the goal. And this counter counts how many rockets I've actually launched, and we've exceeded the goal now. We can verify that here. My counter actually had a bug at some point, and it's one rocket launch lower than what the actual count is. So we've actually launched 1,140. Okay, so let's start with an overview. This is a view of the whole base. So this area here is the main base. This is where we started the game, and this is where we built the the initial production of the science packs and things that we needed to get started. This is where I continue to make all my supplies, or most of the supplies for the base. You know, inserters and power poles and things. These are all being deposited into a robot network so that I can get those things easily. And what I tried to do essentially was, you know, start with a main bus design. So here you can see on the bus I've got 4 iron, 4 copper, and I managed to get beyond the startup base with just red belts for the most part. You know, you can see here with green circuits I had to upgrade to blue belts to get enough throughput, but that was basically how the bus went. Now when we started, we were doing smelting with steel furnaces here, so I was smelting iron up here, smelting copper here. I'm still making some stone brick here in the base. Yeah, we were doing steel here. Or no, I'm sorry, we were doing iron up here and then copper and steel down here. But once I got to the point where I needed to start going off-site to do mining and set up a train network, I started to bring plates in from outside from my main smelting areas. This is the starting refinery. 8 refineries, cracking. I did put in modules over time. Not a whole lot. You know, I'm not using a ton of modules and beacons in the main base. In fact, a lot of this is still on blue assemblers. But you know, I did upgrade most of the more expensive items over time to use productivity modules and a few speed beacons. Okay, we're making bots here. So we can see that over the course of the game, I've made 24,000 logistics bots. I'm not using all of them. Actually, let's see. A lot of them are still in inventory. All right, yeah, so I've got about 3,600 that are in inventory. They're not in use. But that means that the other, you know, all the rest of it are out there somewhere. So I've got about 20,000 logistics bots in use throughout the base. They're not all in one network. As you can see, I've got lots of smaller separate robot networks. Even in these large areas, I have them separated, as you can see. So each of these smelting units has its own separate robot network with about 350 bots. So I decided just to try to keep the robot networks relatively small, not to have giant contiguous networks, except here in the main base. That's the only place where I'm doing that. I'm still doing a little bit of mining in the main base. I'm getting some iron ore up here, which I'm only using to make concrete. We stopped mining copper in the main base a long time ago, and I'm still mining a little bit of stone, again, just so I can make concrete. That's about the only thing that I'm using the stone and iron for, and all the other mining is done off-site. Okay, so that's the starter base. I set this up with, you know, basically one station for rocket fuel, which I'm using to fuel my trains. I bring in 1 train of iron, steel, copper, coal. This is to make plastic. I'm not really using it for fuel anymore. And then down here, I bring in oil. I have a little counter with Nixie tubes, just so I can quickly see how much I've got. I have another train station here to take out sulfuric acid and iron plate to the nuclear area. We need the acid to do the mining of uranium, and I need the iron plate to make the nuclear fuel cells. And then this station is a special one that I use just to deploy trains. So I have a buffer chest here. Actually, let me get out of map view and I can show you. I have a buffer chest here that just holds train engines and cargo wagons. I load fuel So whenever I need to add a new train, I put it in here, I program it, and then I send it out. So I can deploy all my trains from the main base. And then I'm also using a special deletion stop here that's from the automatic train deconstruction mod. So if I have a train somewhere that I want to get rid of, I don't have to pick it up. I can just add this stop as the next station. And then when the train comes here and gets to this stop, it'll automatically get disassembled and put into this active provider chest. So I can recycle it and use it elsewhere. All the trains are 1 engine and 4 wagons. They're all single-headed, so it's a two-way rail system for the most part. If you look at the overall architecture of the base, it's I have I don't know what you would call this, maybe like a spine and rib sort of a design. Maybe there's a fishbone design. There might be a more elegant way to describe it. Let me turn off the station names here. But essentially the main backbone of the base is 4 lanes. So it's 2 lanes in each direction. And then each individual area I have coming off with a 2-lane. So I've got a lot of 4 to 2 lane junctions. And I essentially just took alternating sides and left about 3 power pole distances in between each junction, just to make sure that the space in between junction could hold at least 1 full train, if not 2 trains. I use stackers in almost every station. In fact, I would say probably I do use them in every station. And then at the end of the backbone, I have a U-turn and a stop in case I want to go out to the end to explore or something. So for power, everything is powered by nuclear now. I have 6 of these 10 reactor arrays set up. This started off as a lake, which I eventually landfilled, and then I used a mod called explosive excavation to cut a water channel down the center. Originally, this channel of water only extended out to about here, so I extended it manually by blasting holes in the earth using that mod. That's explosive excavation is what it's called. It allows you to make these blasting charges, which you can use. Each blasting charge will remove 1 tile of earth and replace it with water. So it's a very expensive way to get water in terms of resources, but when you're building something big like this, you really want to be able to have water or land where you need it and not just where it happens to appear. So each of these reactor arrays has steam tanks. This display here shows me what percentage the steam tanks are filled to. So this shows me that they're 24% full. And that's because I'm using almost all of my capacity. We're using about 6 gigawatts for the whole base right now. Each of these 10 reactor units will make 1.4 gigawatts. So with 6 of those, I can make 8.4 gigawatts total. Okay, and all the reactors are controlled, or all the fuel insertion is controlled by this circuit, which basically just monitors whether there's already fuel inside, and it monitors the steam level. So if there's no fuel already in the reactors and the steam level drops below, I think 50%, then it'll insert fuel into the reactors. So if the steam level builds up, then it'll conserve fuel, and it'll wait until the steam level drops below that threshold before it'll add more fuel. Okay, so that's all the power. I still have my original steam power connected. That's over here. So I've got I've got 4 columns of steam power. I think that'll give me like 160 megawatts total, which is, at this point in time, it's barely anything, but it is enough at least to keep a few things running and prevent things from shutting down completely. And then here I have a signal bringing over the steam level from across the way, from the nuclear area. So if the steam level drops very low, then it'll activate the water pumps so that I can create steam power. So this gives me a very, at this point it's almost an insignificant buffer, but for a while it was helping quite a bit to give me a little bit of power when I needed it. And this is all powered by coal. I suppose I could be using the rocket fuel at this point, but it's been a long time since it's even turned on, to be honest. All right, so that's the power. Uranium's being mined here. And this is I think this is the same uranium patch that I started the game with. There might have been another smaller one, but I don't think so. I think I've been using the same uranium patch for this whole time, and there's still plenty of uranium left. Let's see. Yeah, I've still got 3.2 million left. That's 87% of what it started with. So I've got 4 machines processing the uranium ore into the 2, what do they call them? The 2, not isotopes. Maybe they are isotopes. Uranium-238 and uranium-235. Sorry, it's been a long time since I've studied chemistry. I have 1 machine with speed modules doing co-rex enrichment, and this has been enough to keep everything running. I've got 1 machine making fuel cells, and then I have 1 machine reprocessing the spent fuel cells. I probably need more of these because I have almost 8,000 used up fuel cells still in the network, so I think I probably need a couple more centrifuges processing the old fuel cells to catch up. But this has been running for a long time. Over here is where we do the rockets. Actually, rather than doing the whole thing in map view, let's ride over there in the train, and we'll go from station to station in the train. Maybe we won't visit every station, but this will at least give you some sense as to the size of the base and what the rail network looks like. So we go out here onto the main line, and then this will take us over to the rocket base where we're launching the rockets. I have 2 silos. To do 1,000 science per minute, you have to launch 1 rocket per minute. And what I was finding is that with 1 silo, even with speed modules, the animation of preparing the rocket and launching it and waiting for it to take off takes at least half a minute. And I was having a hard time keeping up with only 1 rocket silo, even when it was completely surrounded with speed beacons. So I recently upgraded to 2 rocket silos. These are not launching now because I put some constraints on the insertion of the satellite. So I set it up so that the satellite will only insert when I have less than 10,000 space science packs in inventory over here. And we can see that right now I have 11,000. So that's just to prevent the rockets from launching when they're not needed. So these rockets are ready, and then as soon as we pick up more, which we'll see right here, then these rockets will launch once that inventory level drops below 10,000. There we go. So they just inserted the satellites. Then the rockets will take off. I've got a little counter down here that basically counts how many satellites are getting picked up, and that's how I count my rocket launches in my circuit network for my display here, and then I have that display back at the main base that I showed you at the beginning, down here, 11:55, and it's actually 11:56. Close enough. Okay, so the satellite is made here. The parts that I need to make the satellite, I'm actually making at the main base, or at the starter base, still making them there. And then I load them up into a train here. So I load up accumulators, solar panels, radar, and blue circuits. And then I have a little 1-1 train that takes them over here to make the satellites. Here's the train there. And then the other components I bring in by train as well, obviously. Okay, so we got another launch starting. So here's where I make the low density structures. You'll see a very similar layout in all of my production outposts. I came up with a layout that, well, yeah, it's hard to see from here. But basically what I did is I came up with a layout with 2 rails and a row of roboports next to each one. And then I arranged the production machines in kind of a radius around the center here. And my goal was to try to keep a relatively equal distance for the bots to travel all the way around. So that's why you'll see that I have more machines closer to the middle and then fewer and fewer machines as I get farther out, because I tried to stay within sort of a constant radius that looks like that. And it's worked pretty well. I haven't really had any problems with robots being too slow. They're doing great. Speaking of robots, I think it's time to do another level of robot speed. What I've been doing is researching mining productivity until the next level of mining productivity is more expensive than the next level of robot speed, and then I add another level of robot speed. So I'm going to do that now. So we'll start doing robot speed 10. And that's all the research I'm doing. All right, let's take a look at the input to these stations, because I think that's fairly interesting. We'll go to rocket control units. The PAX is my passenger station. I have a passenger station at almost every one. And that's how I get around the base. So if we go to the rocket control unit area, for example, I'll show you how I control the trains coming into the base. Now here I'm making the Speed 1 modules on site, as you can see. For this base I bring in red circuits, green circuits, and blue circuits. I think that's about it. Actually, it looks like we need more bots here. The train unloads into an active provider, and then it goes into storage chests, which I have over there. But a lot of my active provider chests are still full. So I'm going to add some more bots to this network, just so it can empty out faster. So we'll put in another 350. So that gives me a total of 600 here at this base. Now, what I do here is, at each one of these stations, on anything that brings in like more than 2 ingredients, for the most part, I have a single unload station like this that unloads into active providers. So the train can unload, this stuff will get cleared, and then the train will get out of the way for the next ingredient to come in, and then I use storage chests to hold everything. And what I'm doing is I'm reading the contents of the network here. I multiply it by -1, and then here I'm just filtering out so that I'm only allowing the negative numbers to go through. Because when there's a demand in the robot network, sometimes you'll get a negative. Like you can see there, rocket control units are showing a negative number. And then when that gets multiplied here by -1, it would send out a positive signal, and that was contaminating what I wanted to do. So I'm filtering this out so that only negative signals are being sent. So you can see here I've got a negative signal for green, blue, and red. Those are the ones of interest. And then all the trains from their origin, they come to these in stations. These are all the in stations. They all have the same name, as you can see. And then what I do is I bring those negative numbers in here. I do some math. And it's hard for me to even remember what all these are supposed to do. But essentially what it does is when a train comes in, it stops here at the station. It looks at what the contents of the train are. And if there are more items in the train than are in the station up here, it'll allow the train to go and unload. Now in this case, I've got a train that's only partially full, so I'm going to allow this to go in there anyway. So basically what it does is it comes, I'm just going to fix this so that this train just waits until it's full before it comes here. So it'll come to the inn, it'll wait until it gets a signal to go, and then it'll go and it'll unload until it's empty. Alright, so I'm just going to go ahead and send this on its way, just so you can see it unload. So it'll go there, unloads into the active providers, and then it gets out of there. And then the bots will, as they have time, the bots will transfer to the storage chests. Okay, so that's essentially what each of the production stations look like. And I can show you that. Well, I'll wait till we get to the next station again, so you can see what the train ride looks like. But most of the production stations are set up with that control circuit on the incoming ingredients for each section. So that way I can have... The nice thing about it is that because the logic on those incoming stations is not using any specific item, you know, you probably notice that all the combinators are using the any or each signals. So the nice thing about that is that I can blueprint that design. I can plop it down anywhere, and then no matter what ingredients the station needs, I don't have to make any changes to that circuit logic. It'll just work. The only problem that I have is that if for some reason an incoming train is empty, it'll sit there forever because the production station will never have less than 0. And since it'll never have less than what's in the train, which is also 0, that train will sit there forever. So there have been a few times where I've, for one reason or another, accidentally sent an empty train there, and then it'll just sit in the incoming station and it'll never move. So that's... I could probably find a way to program that out, but anyway. So this is smelting. Again, you'll see the same sort of radial layout for smelting. For iron, I have 4, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I have 4 of these units. Each one of these has 60 miners, and they're all fully moduled and beaconed for maximum speed. And because I have 4 of these, the stations all have the same name. Over time, I've found a need to try to keep them balanced with some intervention. So what I do here is, for each of these sections, I monitor how much ore and how much plate is available by just adding up the contents of these chests. So for the ore, I only allow this signal to go green if I have, or I'm sorry, yeah, I only allow this signal to go green if I have less than 1 train's worth of ore. So as long as I have more ore available, in this case I have about 8,300. Okay, so it just dipped below 8,000, which is what 1 train holds, and then that that signal turns green, and that allows a train to come in and unload. And then for the plate, I also add up the plate. Now this number increases over time rather than decreases. And then I have this set up so that as soon as it has 12,000 or more, then it'll turn green and allow a train to come in and load. So by doing this, this prevents ore trains from going to stations that already have a lot of ore, and it prevents plate trains from coming in and sitting at a station that doesn't have enough plates. And since usually only one or two of these stations at any given time will require a train to come in, this causes the trains to wait here in the stacker until there's a station that's ready for it. And once I put those controls on those signals in, it boosted my production because it made sure that the trains were going to all of these stations in a balanced manner. You know, so we can see now that they're all running, they're all green. You know, the green lights from the bottleneck mod means that everything is running. If you don't do that, then the trains will always go to the closest station that's available. And unless you have a lot of trains running, that usually means that the farthest stations end up getting neglected. And sometimes you'll have a train sitting here forever waiting to get full plates, and none of the ore trains get there. So the other thing that I've done recently is, rather than allowing these requester chests to fill up, I set them so that they'll only load up to what we need to fill a train, which is about 700 plates in each chest. For a long time, I had a request on these chests to nearly fill the requester. But what I was finding is that there was always one or two chests that were getting really full compared to all the others. And then that was affecting the total that I was using to control when to bring the trains in. And then the trains weren't filling evenly. You know, I would have like one cargo wagon that would get full, and then the other ones were just waiting for plates to be made before they would fill up. And since I was allowing these chests to all get full, more plate production was still getting loaded into these ones that didn't need any more. So I recently changed it so that I'm only allowing a minimum of plates to get loaded into these chests, only enough to fill a train, and that helps keep the production going to where it's needed. All right, so that's iron. Copper is pretty much the same setup, except in the case of copper, I have 6 units instead of 4, and each one of these is on its own isolated robot network. Let's go over to steel. Actually, I'm going to leave the train here. Steel is right over here. We can walk over probably quicker than we can go there by train. Actually, I'll send the train over so that we can hitch a ride when we're done. All right, steel is pretty much the same, but in the case of steel, my Factorio calculator was telling me that I needed 10 modules making steel plates. But I'll clue you in on something. I don't think I really need this much steel production. I think there may have been an error in the Factorio calculator, because if I look at my production of steel plate for the last hour, it's 8,700 per minute. In the last 10 hours, it's averaged 8.4 thousand per minute. And the Factorio calculator tells me I need 11,500 a minute, but it's just not true, because I've been making a lot less than that, and I don't have anything stopped because of a steel shortage. So I think I may have either input something incorrectly, or maybe there's an error in the calculator. I'm not sure which of those is the case, but in any case, I think I have more steel production than I really needed. So, but because I needed 10, so I laid this out in side-by-side units, and there are 5 of these side-by-side units. I didn't want to do it like this, because with 10 of these, this would be going all the way down here, and it would take forever for the trains to get from the stacker, and that would cause problems, because the way the stacker works is it has to wait for the trains to get to their station before it allow another train to get out. That's how we prevent trains from getting jammed in the stacker. Actually, I can see that I might have an issue here. I may need to add more stacker lanes for iron. I can see that this is backing up a bit. I don't want trains to start to back up onto the main line. That'll cause everything to stop. So I'll probably add a few more lanes over there. But in any case, a change that I recently made, and this was a suggestion in one of the comments, a very good one, I thought. One of the problems I had was that with 10 loading stations for the steel plates, I don't really have enough steel trains coming in that would cause all of those loading stations to get hit. So what I did is, because of the side-by-side nature, each side-by-side unit is all on the same network, so they share ore and they share the steel plates. So what I did recently is I just turned off the requester chests for the right side train stations so that all the steel plates go over to the left side. So in effect, I have 5 loading stations for steel plate, but I have 10 unloading stations for steel ore, or for iron ore, I should say. And that helps the steel plate stations get ready more quickly to load the trains. But other than that, it's all pretty much the same as the other smelting areas. You'll see that I'm using belts to feed rocket fuel to the trains. And this is pretty simple. You know, I just use splitters and then they fill the trains when they get here. This is my refueling station. I set the refueling stations so that they, whoops, there we go, so that they only turn on when they drop below a certain level of rocket fuel in the chest. So that way my fuel train doesn't constantly run around the base. It'll only go when fuel is actually needed. I'm not fueling at any of the mining stations, but every other station has fuel going into it. Speaking of fuel, all my rocket fuel is made over here. Why don't we go over there next? Let's see, rocket fuel. I know this is kind of a long video. I'll try not to take too much more time. I won't go over the production setup for everything because it's, you know, the rest of it is going to be pretty similar to what we've already seen. This is green circuits. In the case of green circuits, I decided to have separate unloading stations for plates rather than have a universal, just because it only needs 2 ingredients, so it wouldn't take up too much space. So in this case, I've got individual unloading stations for copper and iron, and then a loading station for the green circuits. There are 2 units there. I'm doing direct insertion of the copper wire. So the copper wire goes into a chest, and then the chest goes into the green circuit assembly machine. And there's a 1-to-1 ratio of copper wire to green circuits. With all the speed modules and productivity, I think the green circuits actually need slightly more than 1 copper wire machine. So I actually have more green circuit machines than I need, and that kind of makes up for that slight difference in the requirements between copper wires and green circuits. So this station's waiting for iron, but we're doing okay on overall production. So the next iron train that comes in should go down there. All right, this is where we're making the rocket fuel. And this is producing not only to fuel my trains, but also to launch the rockets. And I've got a big refinery over here. Again, everything's got productivity modules and speed beacons. So basically I'm taking all the light oil. Light oil gets converted directly into solid fuel. Heavy oil I convert into light oil first, because you get twice as much solid fuel out of light oil as you do out of heavy oil. And then the petroleum I also turn into solid fuel. Okay, and then the solid fuel is carried by bots over to feed these machines. They make the rocket fuel, and then I feed those by belt up here where it gets picked up for the rocket base. And then this is the loading station for the fuel train. Let's just walk over to the refinery since it's fairly close. I set this up here originally just because I have a large oil patch close by. So all the oil from here goes up to make the rocket fuel. I think I probably need to bring in more oil, to be honest. Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'm going to stop pumping oil over to the depot from here. Or what I can do is I can put some logic on it. Actually, I think I had that set up already. So let's only turn that pump on if I've got more than 2,000 oil in this tank. And actually, if I have less than that much oil, I should probably pump some in from over here. But in any case, excess oil from here comes over here. This is my oil depot. I've got a little over 400,000 oil in the tanks right now. My oil trains, I started off with 1-1 oil trains, and then later on I upgraded them to 1-2, just so I could have fewer trains on the network. So all the oil comes in here. Besides the pump jacks there, I have one other place here where I'm pumping oil. I put speed modules in all of those. And actually I can put speed modules over there too. I haven't done that yet. But these come down into the refinery. So similar to the other places, I've got multiple smaller units of 5 refineries each. And these are all making petroleum for the most part. I do pump out some of the heavy oil to make lubricant. So down here is where I make lubricant. That goes over to those tanks. And then I also make sulfuric acid here for the blue circuit production. That goes up here. So, and then here is where I make the plastic. So I bring in the coal by train. And this provides all the plastic for the base, for the low density structures, and for the red circuits. I think those are the only places I'm using plastic. Yep, red circuits and low density structures. And then that's where I load lubricant, and that's where I load the sulfuric acid. I bring in iron plate here for the acid production. Okay, and that's basically it for the refinery. So I'll head back over here. While I'm here, I'm going to put some speed modules in those pump jacks. It'll only take me a minute. You don't mind. Because I see a lot of machines in a red state here, and that's not good. Now, the nice thing about the oil wells is that they never fully deplete. So if you ever get to the point where you need more oil out of your existing wells, you can just throw in some speed modules, and that'll give you a boost in output. And in this case, it's a 100% increase. Okay, that should help a lot. Yeah, we can see these are all green now, so that was basically all I needed. All right. Over here I'm making modules. This is where I made all the productivity module 3s and speed module 3s that I used to build the base. And then I'm also making speed module 1s over here for the high-tech science packs, which I'm making over here. Let's go over there so I can show you that. Let's see, science, or no, high-tech is what I want. There we go. So after the modules, the rest of the base, you know, I'm making red circuits here. Again, I have a dedicated train for each ingredient. I have 1 copper wire machine per 6 red circuit machines. And then I bring in plastic, copper, and green circuits, and then red circuits out. So each of these units has 4 train stations. And I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of those making red circuits. Okay, I'm getting an alert that I am running low on science packs. And the ones that I'm running low on are blue. What's my problem here? Okay, the train is loading actually. But I'm gonna tell this train to go now before I completely run dry. I don't want my science to stop. That does happen from time to time, and it's usually just because I'm missing some ingredient. Now over here, I'm bringing in green circuits, red circuits, iron, and steel. Yeah, so I think I probably ran low on iron, and that's why I started to run low on circuits. Well, and you remember we were getting a backup of iron trains over here. I think it would, if I was going to continue running this base, I'd probably add another unit to iron. I think I'm just too close to the limit of what I need. It would probably be a good idea to have some extra iron production capacity, because you can see that I have a lot of trains waiting to get loaded. I'm definitely bringing up enough iron ore in. You can see that because I have iron ore trains waiting, and none of these are waiting to get ore. I think I'm just making barely enough compared to what I need for the whole base, and as a consequence, if I get any slowdowns because of a traffic jam, this area in particular, well, you can see that right now. This area gets backed up from time to time, and that slows things down. And I'm so close to just the limit of what I need to produce that if these traffic jams don't clear themselves up pretty quickly, it's going to result in my science stopping. So if I were to do this again, I did design everything with a 10% safety margin. But I think the next time I build a base like this, I'll probably go with a 20% margin instead. 10%'s not quite enough to take care of all these little situations. So this is high-tech science. In this case, we need sulfuric acid to make batteries. So I'm making the batteries here on site, as you can see. So I bring in iron and copper and acid. I make the batteries here. And then the red circuits and blue circuits get fed in as well. For the, let's see, no, not red circuits, I'm sorry. I'm using copper wire, the batteries, blue circuits, and then the speed modules I'm bringing in from the other area, as you can see there. So these are emptying into active provider chests, going into storage. This is set up, again, the same way that I showed you in the low density structures. And all these combinators have the same logic. So again, it's easy just to put those in there, and when a train comes in, it just compares what's in the train versus what's over here. If the train has more than what is here in the station, it'll go and unload. Otherwise, it'll wait there until it's needed. That way I don't get all these storage chests getting filled up. That was really the main reason for that. Okay, so this train is going to wait here until it's full. It's nearly full. Well, it's about halfway there. It holds 32,000. All right, so my alarm turned off, which is good. The other science areas are essentially the same. Okay, so I'm making red and green science here. Over here, I just bring in copper, iron, and green circuits. Right, so I can see here that I don't have any iron trains waiting. So I need to add a little bit more iron production. This is where blue science is made. We're missing some ingredient here too. Probably iron plate. Yep. So it looks like we could use a little more iron plate in the base. Just so that we don't get things stopping too frequently. But as we can see, science, at least for the last hour, we've been using 1,000 a minute. So we're keeping up generally, but we do get occasional stoppages, which I think would be helped by having a little bit more iron production. All right, let's go over to the science area. And then I think that's where we'll conclude the tour. That is my westernmost production outpost. The other two are mining. I've got copper mining down here. In this copper mine, I'm using 2 rows of belts, and then I use splitters to balance the belts. That goes into a 16 by 16 balancer, which is pretty fun. And then I have 2 loading stations for the trains. No trains waiting, so I've got plenty of copper mining going on. Up here I have copper and iron. I'm using bots just so that way it's easier to keep things separated. In this case I have 2 stations loading iron and 1 to load copper. Alright, and so here's where all the magic happens. This is the science area. Again, same control on incoming trains. They come in and they wait there until the supply starts to run low here, and then they come and unload. So here I can see I've got a lot of high-tech science packs. Actually, we're doing okay on everything right now. Right, the space science trains hold 4,000 each. These stack in 2,000 2,000 stacks, so I didn't want to wait. I mean, if I filled up one of these trains, it would hold 80,000 science packs. So that's why I just have the trains coming in 4,000 increments. The red and green science share a single train, so that train is half red, half green. Every other one has its own dedicated train. And then over here I set up my alarm where I just check the level of each science pack, and anytime, if any of them fall below 2,000, then this alarm will go off to let me know that my science packs are low. And I can hear that no matter where I am, and that way I know to check things out. I added that recently because sometimes the science would stop and I wouldn't know until I happened to check my production graph, which I do pretty frequently now, but for a while, I might have had 20 or 30 minutes with no science before I figured out that I had a problem. So this way it lets me know when I'm getting close to running out. All right, so that's about it. I'm going to head back to the main base. So again, it's been a long journey. It took me a little over 100 episodes to get done. Actually, let me save here. I've got about 120 hours of playtime here on this particular map. But you can see it's running at 60 frames a second, 60 updates per second. So now I have an i7 processor, which helps. But the base in general, I think, has been designed fairly efficiently. So that helps to keep the UPS in good shape. They also made changes to the game in some of the recent revisions to make it run more efficiently, and that's helped a lot too. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I've enjoyed having you all along for the ride. I'm going to start a new series after I take a few days off to have a little break from the game. The next series, I'm going to be doing Angel's mods and Bob's mods and a dozen or so other mods as well. So we'll be going up to another level of complexity. The last few series, I did a tutorial series. Then I did this Let's Play where we went beyond a vanilla single rocket launch to doing 1,000 science a minute. And so the next series will be going to higher levels of complexity as well with Angels and Bob's mods. It's going to be a lot of fun. I've played quite a bit with those mods on my own. I've never gotten to a rocket launch with those mods, so I'll be going into new territory for me, and I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that as well. So I look forward to seeing you then. Until then, take care, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.